Uncertainty is not a time to sit back and wait. Uncertainty is not a time to do that. It's a time to make moves. It's a time to expand. It's a time to grow. But learn it, plan it. Don't dive in and just go, oh, well, I'll take it. I see that quote of entrepreneurs are the people who jump off a cliff and build a plane on the way down. What a load of bull. Absolutely wrong. Great entrepreneurs are the people who set a vision. The formula for success is, in my books, very clear. Dream, goal, learn, plan, act. Build your dreams, turn your dreams into goals. Your goals do not mean go to work. Your goals mean start reading, start learning, start listening to podcasts. Once you have your goals, you do the learning, and from the learning, then you do the planning. Until you've done the learning and planning, your goal does not need action.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. We believe the purpose of business is to make lots of money. We'll show you how to scale and grow your profit and cash flow, all while working less. We're a big fan of the ELF model. Easy, lucrative, and fun. If you're the backbone of America, you deserve to be well rewarded for that. Listen in to see how other business owners are doing it and how to maximize your profit and cash flow. Welcome back to the Profit Answer Man, Brad Sugars. Great to have you back again.
Wonderful to be here, Rocky, as always.
And we're here to talk about my favorite subject. Make more, work less, have fun.
Can I do it the other way around? Can I say have fun, work less, and make more? I might go with that way.
I'm okay as long as you get all three. I don't care what order, as long as they're consistently there.
That's perfect plan. Perfect plan.
Everyone wants that out of their business, and yet I think a lot of business owners struggle with it.
Look, I think when we go into business for freedom, which is money freedom, time freedom, boss freedom. You can apply it for all of them. And I think gradually what we look for in our business is just peace and calm and ease and that sort of thing. And I love thinking that a great business should be boring, because if it's exciting, it means that there's a lot more craziness going on. I like businesses that just keep making money, if you ask me. I think but that comes back to getting your business running on autopilot. I think that, too many business owners think that they are the business rather than building a business that is the business.
And that is true. They become the bottleneck. There's a lot of fear in letting go.
Well, yeah, look, here's the problem with that. Getting to your first million, it really works when you are the center of the business. You are the guru. You're the best. It's like getting to your first million is you at the center and some helpers around you. And being in control works. Making all of the decisions work. Everything coming through you, it works getting to your first million, Rocky. And that's the problem. Because it works, because you making the sales works, you making the decisions, you dealing with the customers work, because all those things work. The problem is what got you to a million will stop you getting to 10 million. Sort of thing. You might push 2 and you might very rarely push 3 with you as the center, but you being in control does go into that word you mentioned. It becomes the bottleneck when you get to that next phase. So learning phase 1 is learning how to be dang good at what you do and how to work your tail off and how to just get the results you need to get. Phase 2, though, a little bit different.
It is. And I think we've been having a lot of conversations about the dead zone, whatever you want to label it, getting from probably around, and every business is different, but let's say from 2 to 5 million. It seems to be a very difficult zone for a lot of businesses, and one where cash and profits tend to disappear for a while. What have you seen in that zone?
Well, look, it means you haven't made the transition. Ultimately, it just means you have not made the transition from a founder-led business to a managed business. So I'll give you the distinction. You are the general manager under $1 million. You're not a CEO yet. You don't have a C-level executive on the team. How can you be the chief executive officer without any other executive officers? So you've got to understand that you're the general manager. It's you and a bunch of helpers. Now, to get from there to the next phase, you have to build managers in. You have to build a layer of management. So you'll start one division or one section at a time. You need at least 3 managers in any company to get it moving. And you've got to have someone in charge of sales and marketing, someone in charge of finance and admin, and someone in charge of operations, sort of thing. That's the tetrahedron of a business and how it grows. So you've got to build those managers. Now, the more millions you want, the more managers you've got to build. If you don't have a manager of sales and a manager of marketing, you're not getting to 10 million. You're just not, And so that's where the old theory of you build your people and they build your business comes in. So you've got to go from being a manager to becoming a leader of managers. Now, my definition of a manager, Rocky, is important because a manager has two responsibilities: competency and productivity. You've got to build competent people and you've got to build productive people. If I measure a team, let's say I went through all of your direct reports, Rocky, and I said, okay, let's see all your direct reports, and imagine productivity, their average was 6, and competency, their average was 5. That's not their score, that's the manager's score. So a manager that's not building productivity and not building competency is not building an organization. So your job when you step up to leader is to build the managers and build the systems, right? But your manager's job is to run the business and keep it running. Managers don't change much without you, but they'll run it without you there.
So you talked about building systems and building people. Both of those are very different skill sets. How does the business owner level themselves up with those types of skill sets, or do they just bring in experts to help them do it for that time period? Like, what works best?
3 things. Number 1, yes, you have to level up. Whether you level up to do it or whether you level up to get to a point where you have enough knowledge to interview and employ someone to do it. And that's an important one. If you don't know anything about marketing, how are you going to hire a CMO? If you don't know anything about customer experience, how are you going to employ that person? So you got to learn enough to be able to employ the right person. Or number 2, learn enough to do it yourself. Or number 3, learn enough to use AI to do it for you. Systemization today with AI is so much faster than it ever was before. Dang, you can create a video and put in 20 documents and all of a sudden it'll create great systems for you. So, yeah, you've got to level up, but it could also be the third way that you mentioned, and that is recruiting specialists in that area. The problem is most small businesses don't have the money to recruit specialists in those areas to create the systems.
You found AI. So I use AI for everything. I love AI, but the one thing, the more and more I use AI, the more and more I'm learning, if I'm not smart enough to challenge the AI and go, wait a minute, that's not right. AI can sound really smart.
Dude, AI drifts.
Right.
And it makes you sound a lot smarter than you are in a lot of cases. It's like, dang, I've sounded amazing in that thing. That's, I'm very clever right there. So, you've got to balance it up. But what we're talking about is AI doesn't replace leadership. It doesn't replace human connection. It doesn't replace strategy thinking. It doesn't replace those things. So it will, and I'll put it to you very bluntly, most AI today is just being used by people to automate chaos. So if you didn't have a documented system in your business beforehand, if you couldn't put it on a whiteboard and show me the step-by-step of it beforehand, don't expect AI to fix it.
It's fun. I was at a local AI meetup, and a lot of the companies there, I would say, were high 8 figures until maybe low 9, 100 million mark, even above the 100 million mark. And they're all talking about implementing AI. And where they're really struggling is there are no processes in these companies, even at that size, that people are following. Nobody wants to change. And so they're like, wait a minute, if we put AI in, it's going to do exactly what you said. It's going to amplify the chaos. But it amazed me was that they got to 100 million with no systems.
Say no systems, Rocky. There's a big difference here. Having SOPs, checklists, documented systems within things works, right? You can have that basic stuff. And I'll tell you in a minute exactly where they're failing with AI implementation, okay? Having a set of SOPs doesn't mean your business is systematized. So when people come to us at ActionCOACH, we install our operating system, which is an operating system for the whole business. How do you run a business? Most people have never learned how to be a business owner. They've learned how to be a technician or an operator. And there's a big difference between the 3 things. So you go technician, operator, manager, leader, owner. Okay. And so the technician is good at the job, the operator is good at making other people do the job, the manager is good at getting people to, learn and grow, and then the leader is good at building managers, and therefore the owner is good at building a business. And that goes back to my definition of a business, a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Now, I'll tell you, Rocky, without a full operating system of the business, AI is looking at it in compartmentalized little bits and pieces here and there. It's not looking at the whole operation. So I'll give you your best soundbite of the day, Rocky. We live in a time called digitize or die, meaning that the vast majority of your business is not digitized, therefore AI can't help. If everything in your company is digitized, AI can help. So let's look at where AI is helping greatly right now in companies. It's helping greatly in accounting. Why is it helping greatly for CFOs? See, you're not experiencing that?
Not to the level that I expect. We do a lot of things manually because every time I ask, let me rephrase that. When I say manually, there are systems built and processed in there. It's basic, put this in here and get it done. Could AI move this from here to there? Yes, it can. But every time I sit with AI and I ask it to build me a spreadsheet, it makes a lot of mistakes. And it's faster for me to sometimes do the work. Now, can I bring AI into my spreadsheet and have it do things faster than I can? Certain way, yes. If I ask it for insights, or if a particular client's struggling to reconcile stuff and I give it the data, I still struggle to get an answer that's correct out of it on
Correct.
the financial
And so that
side.
comes back to when you're using a generic AI that's not been trained how to read accounting documents, and the best one now between Claude's Cowork and Perplexity's computer, but Codex just came out again a couple of weeks back and is crushing both of them. So it's like it's a back and forth tortoise and the hare type thing. I'll tell you this, most people, when they're using AI, think that it's about singular prompting. It's not. It's about building a system underneath it with multi-layered prompting, multi-layered evaluation, and all of that. Like, Rocky, if I put your brain to work, your brain is operating at so many different levels, evaluating that stuff based on your experience of 30-something years, based on. You give AI a singular prompt and expect it to do as much as that, not going to happen. So that's where I think people are doing it. But I go back to the main problem. Without digitization, we end up with a massive problem, because AI just can't get to all of the information in the business. But a whole business operating system is very different to single SOPs, single checklists, etc. Most of us, unfortunately, don't learn to be business owners. We learn to be business operators. And then when challenged with it, it's a totally different thing.
No, and I agree with you. And I think where I'm struggling on the financial side is it doesn't have some discernment. Yes, there are things that it does phenomenally well.
This is the whole thing. AI will not replace decision making. It's not going to replace that yet.
Yeah.
And I say yet, Rocky, because it's not far away. It's going to be smarter than you and me. Well, probably actually technically the SpaceX version is the smartest one. But, when we look at it, Rocky, I think that there's this challenge, okay? We've been in business long enough to know that every time something comes along and they go, this is going to change the world in a day, we know it's not going to. AI is going to change the world immediately. Yeah, so was the internet, and so was. We're expecting it to leap and bound. Here's my overall perspective on AI. 30 years ago, I started in business, or now 33. Mike Bash said to me, as one of the founding vice presidents of Federal Express, he said, Brad, 80% of business is routine, so you got to systematize it. And 20% of business is human, so you got to train your people and humanize it. Nothing could be closer to the truth than that today. 80% of business will be run by computers and 20% will be run by humans. And that makes the 20% more important than ever before. If we look at the automobile industry right now, it is 80% of manufacturing is computers. Robots, bots, all of these things, 80% of it is done by computers and 20% is done by humans. It used to be 80% humans and 20% machine. They still needed a welding machine and they still needed, all those things, but we're moving in that direction. And even the most fundamental businesses, I'm opening longevity centers here in partnership with Tony Robbins and Gary Brecker, and our massage machine is better than a human masseuse at getting results for people. Now, it's not a human, and you know that, but, it'll get the job done actually better than a human would, but you're not getting the connectivity that people are looking for. And I think that, again, the 20% where connectivity, leadership, human interaction will be more and more important today. And the jobs that we will see in the future will blow your mind compared to the jobs changes that we've seen in our lifetime so far.
So how does a small business owner compete in this kind of a world? I mean, definitely they have to shift. There's always going to be opportunity.
You hire your teenage kid, Rocky. They know more about AI than you'll possibly ever know. They haven't had to learn digital. They think digital. They are digital. Us analog people, we grew up in an analog world and we didn't. So for a small business to compete, you've got to go and get young people. You've got to go and jump on Fiverr and have someone write that code for you to evaluate your thing using AI. You've got to do that. But the other thing is, Rocky, let's be blunt. Most competition today, and in fact, I'll give you the statistics for AI today. Somewhere between 70 and 80% of businesses say they're using AI today. Answer me this question, everybody listening. What percentage of businesses are using paid AI, where they're actually paying for an AI solution? Have a guess, buddy. Have a guess. What do you think?
Less than 20? 3.
You're
kidding
3%. Me. So it's not, when people say, oh, we're all using AI, no, they're not. Now, let's also be clear on the fact that the vast majority of business owners still don't know how to update their Instagram profile. So let's not worry too much about AI. I think there's a lot more fundamental things today, Rocky, that business owners are struggling with, like recruiting good people, keeping good people. Those sorts of things, dealing with the conundrum of tariffs and, okay, all of this change that's happening and what's going on here, and gas prices are up. Now gas prices are back down. What are we going to do? I think the fundamentals are still more of a challenge today than things like AI.
And I agree with you. I think just a quick comment on AI, and then let's switch gears. When they say they're using AI, they're using it to write an email or essentially do a Google search. They're not using it as a thought partner. They're not using it to automate or to build out their SOPs and their systems. So I do understand it. They're using it like a kindergartner instead of like a business owner. So I get that. The people thing, I think, is real. That is a struggle for a lot of small business owners. The first part is, how do I find the right people? And then how do you keep them? How do you pay them? And how do you, I'm not going to say the word motivate them, but how do you engage them so that they're excited about coming to work for you and helping you to grow your business?
Well, first things first, you don't motivate people. You find people who are motivated to join your mission, to join your organization, to do what you're doing. So that's part of your job in recruiting, is finding people who are motivated. Second part to that, you brought up finding people. Finding people today is a marketing job. Because here's the challenge. The guy or gal you want to come and do the work in your business, the one that's going to be great, already has a job. You've got to recruit them to come and work with you. You can't just run an ad and go, hopefully this person will show up and, that sort of thing. You've got to recruit. You've got to sell them on the concept of working for you. It's not like anything we've had to do before. Now, Rocky, also, we've got to look at the generational shifts. So baby boomers really don't understand it, because in baby boomer world, your brain is still stuck in keep a roof over the head and pay for food and things, because the baby boomers were that. Me, Gen X, I was the last generation in the Western world, that is, last generation in the Western world to have to really worry about making certain that we had enough money to pay the bills, sort of thing. My kids, and like my older kids, 24, 25 right now, those kids, their biggest challenge was a very simple one, in that they moved through, if you use Maslow as an example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs showed that they moved into Y. They called them Gen Y, the millennials, but it should have been Gen Y, WHY. Because based on where they came into the world, we as a society were more involved in why are we doing this? We'd moved into self-actualization rather than that. So if you're going to manage different generations, you're going to have to learn to manage those generations different. why we do things is so much more important today. You want change to succeed in a business, you have to start with the humans. You don't start with the technology or start with the systemization. You start with the humans believing that we need change, wanting change, desiring change. And once the humans believe and want and desire the change, then you can introduce the technology, then you can introduce the systems. But coming back to your point on hiring today is so very different to what it used to be because people want different things out of their work today. Historically, it was about pay the bills, do the thing. Now it's about what am I going to get from working there? How much am I going to grow? How much am I going to learn? What freedoms are there? Will I be able to work from home? There's so many more parts to the algorithm of getting a job today. So I think that we as employers have to get a lot better at marketing to find the right people. We have to get a lot lazier at a lot less lazy at recruiting. I think we've got too many that they have they literally do one interview and they go, you got the job. Like that doesn't work. Come on.
You had mentioned when you first started talking about this, they want to come to work in a place that has purpose, right? And meaning for them. But I find a lot of business owners skip the whole what's our purpose and our vision and who are we and what are we all about? Because if you don't have that, how am I going to entice the person to want to be part of the thing that we're working on and the dream we're bringing out there? If they miss that first step to say, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. Do you want to be part of this move?
I don't think, when we look at it, buddy, most business owners have never been taught to be a business owner. They were taught to be a great technician. They were taught to be a great operator, but they've never been taught how to be a business owner. So we've got to cut them some slack in that way. I think that's important first and foremost. Having a vision for what you want your company to be that is over and above just a company is vital today. Back 30 years ago, you didn't have to have a vision and a mission and an agreed set of core values. Today, you have to have a vision, mission, agreed set of core values. What is it that the company is aiming to achieve over and above just making money? Now, the making money is definitely important because if we don't do that, we're not here for the next day. So we've still got to be focused on that and we've still got to be able to do it. And yeah, I think that's a really important part of it. But look, if you are struggling with a vision of what your company needs to do over and above just making money, start with the vision of just being the very best in your industry, in your area. To be the very best landscaper in all of Las Vegas, that's a great starting mission. It's not a real vision, but it's a great starter mission until you find something that means more purposeful to you personally.
One of the things going back to AI that I've found it super helpful for is A, kind of creating some of these stories, but B, if you're a boomer and you need to talk to Gen Z or these other generations, just say what you want to AI and then say, can you reformat for me in a way that, a particular person like this personality who is of this generation would like to hear it. And then you just have to read it. And then that kind of helps at least with the communication. All right. Once we get to that level, we hit that 3 to 5 million. We're starting to build out the systems, the processes, the people, new level, new devil. Now what's going to happen?
So you've started to build your management team. You're handing over management. You're looking at it from that. You start building the systems so operations can happen whether you show up or not. The most important system then at this stage is the scalability systems, and that's scalability of your sales, scalability of your marketing. See, most companies, when they got to that first million, and I remember this when I fired my number one sales guy. Guess who it was? This guy. Yeah. Because until I fired myself in sales, I never actually built a sales system. Until I fired myself in the marketing role, I never actually built marketing systems. And so we also then have to, Rocky, look at moving from the traditional referrals, networking, going out and finding business to paid media. If we want to start scaling, we have to move to paid media. It just is part of the scale strategy. So to get to 10 million, you need a management team and you need systems of scale built into the organization. And that starts the growth rate happening for you for the whole business. But that's what gets you to 10 million. And again, what got you here won't get you there.
Paid marketing seems to be a black hole for a lot of small businesses, right? Because they are not marketers at the end of the day. And so that's part of the struggle. They hire these agencies. Just this morning, I was having a conversation with a gentleman. He's spending like 8 to 10,000 just on management, not even on the actual ads. And this is not a very big business. And it's like, it's not working. We gave it 12 to 15 months. I'm like, yeah, you got to pull the Band-Aid off. And
look, I'm going to say it very clearly. If it's not working in 90 days, it's not working. So most marketing, you'll see it work inside 48 hours. Paid marketing, you'll see it working inside 48 hours or it's not going to work. So your offer might be wrong. Your marketing might be wrong. Your target might be wrong. And this is where most people approach marketing in a straight line instead of approaching marketing like a scientist. See, a scientist will go and trial 100 different ways of doing things. An engineer, an inventor, they'll go and do, there's 1,000 ways of trying to build the light bulb sort of thing. And that is essentially one of the biggest differences between real marketers. They understand that marketing fails the vast majority of times, so let's keep testing all sorts of different things. But also, Rocky, what I find today is that people misunderstand marketing. See, the old way of marketing was you did the marketing and you got someone's name and email, and then the sales team did 80% of the work. So marketing did about 20% of the work and sales did 80% of the heavy lifting. Well, today, marketing is almost the opposite. It's about 80% of sales is the marketing, meaning, can I go to your website and do enough research to buy this thing without talking to a salesperson? Can I learn enough? Can I watch enough videos, download enough ebooks, read enough stuff that I can do this? Otherwise, I'm probably going to buy from someone else, because what I'm looking for is to get the knowledge base before I go out there and try and do this thing with everybody. So I see a lot of people mistaking marketing today. They lose the education side of marketing. Marketing is both education and communication, helping people learn how to buy. And so most websites, Rocky, if I was to look at a website, the vast majority of websites are about 20% of the material on them that they need to have. They're mostly how to buy my thing websites. They're not learn all about my industry, learn all about my business. And that's why AI is not finding them, and why, very bluntly, that's why SEO never.
Lots of things to do.
Well, there's two sides to marketing, buddy. There's you finding them and there's them finding you. Most small businesses are good at the we find them part of it. Direct mail, door knocking, networking, telemarketing, but they're no good at the let's get everyone to find us part.
No, that's true. And it's funny because the conversations we're having lately are going back to old school of direct mail, because, if Facebook ad shows up and it's gone in 3 seconds. Direct mail at least sits around for a little bit. Nobody knocks on doors. And the reason I like door knocking is most people don't answer their phones anymore, right? And people these days are less likely even to answer text, forget about email. So do something different. What comes around goes around.
Yeah, you've got to do both. If you want to scale business, you've got to do marketing where they find you, and you've got to do marketing where you find them. It's got to be both sides of the fence. But, ultimately what we're looking at in the growth rate of a business to that 10 million plus range is you have to have some form of scale marketing. Now, what that means is moving up the funnel as well. So at the bottom of the funnel, where most small businesses are good, is bottom of funnel marketing, meaning when someone's ready to buy, they're good at marketing to someone who's already ready to buy. Well, moving to that mid funnel, getting people on webinars, getting people to fill in a score sheet of some sort, getting people to download an ebook or buy an ebook, or getting people to fill in a questionnaire. That mid-funnel marketing is where most businesses don't even get to, let alone the top of funnel marketing like a Nike or that. And this is where, when you talk to me, Rocky, about they go to agencies, unfortunately, the agencies go straight to top of funnel marketing. And what that generates, about 8% of the leads at that level are ready to do business today. So that top of funnel marketing will generate business for a year, 2 years, 5 years down the track, but it won't generate business for today. Generating business for today is bottom of funnel. But what we have to remember is only 8% of the market is ready to buy now. So your marketing is going to do that. And that's why that reach out marketing is definitely more effective for bottom of funnel. That mid funnel stuff where we've got to get people to commit some time and energy, that sort of stuff, get them on webinars, ebooks, score themselves on some sort of a thing. That stuff is where I think the leap starts, getting to the mid-funnel people, the people that they're aware of the fact that they need this thing, but they haven't actually purchased, they haven't decided if they're going to, where they're going to, who they're going to, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to learn in marketing, Rocky, that I think challenges business people. But again, you hire someone who's had 10, 15 years experience doing this, and just shut up and get out of their way.
It's funny because I'm finding a lot of businesses today are able to hire much older people who just want out of corporate and would love to do something different. They've made most of their money. So for them now, it is, even at that older generation with experience, it's about purpose, it's about freedom. They don't want to start a business necessarily, but having the place to come and do that and have autonomy and not have to deal with all the corporate stuff, I'm seeing small businesses get success with that. So go ahead.
Yeah, look, I think that what you've got to look for in today's world is people who can do the job on day one. Stop worrying about getting people who can't and get people who can.
Business is pretty simple, but doing simple's hard.
Yeah, simple doesn't mean easy. That's the challenge. Simple does not mean easy, because you've also got to get your ego out of the way. You've got to be willing to let go and allow other people to do the job. And, that to me is one of the more hard challenge emotionally, because that's where, when you talk about going from 1 million to 10 million, you got to let go of being the technician. Okay. Now from 10 to 100 million, you got to let go of being the day-to-day boss. You've got to let go of that. And when you build a C-level executive team, that's what you need to go from 10 to 100. So you're going from 1 to 10, you need to build a team of managers. Well, going from 10 to 100, you need to build a team of leaders. So you become the CEO and you have CMO, CFO, like those C-level execs. Well, those C-level executives will not work for you if you're the one looking over their shoulder all day, every day. They don't want to work in that place. They want to work where they can be leaders, where they can make decisions, where you agree what the goal is, agree what the objectives and key results are, and then say, good, go do it. That to me is the level of person. Now, to do that, you got to learn to get out of your own ego and allow other people to be better than you at that job.
No, I concur with you on that. That is a big part of it. And I think that's part of the hard part of letting go, is realizing that they don't need you and that you don't need to do everything. And again, not causing all those people the hassles that they don't want to be with you. And so that's a big part of it. And I think that, for most of our audience, these are the stages that they're in and they're trying to get through. It always seems like their attitude is, I'll be profitable when, or I'll do that when, instead of realizing, no, you have to do that now so that you can get to that. It's like, I'll go to the gym after I lose weight. No, it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah, look, I think that for all of us, Rocky, that get into business for ourselves, we realize that we need to learn and grow. We realize that. But realizing it and being comfortable with it are two different things. I teach it to people this way. You think you're growing the business. The reality is the business is growing you. That hard customer, they're there to teach you how to handle that in the future and how to create better systems in the future. That employee who just won't do as you want, they're there to teach you better management and better leadership skills. That supplier that doesn't deliver, they're there to teach you patience. So as much as you build the business definitely builds you.
And that's one of the biggest things I've learned. Being a business owner is a self-development journey, and the business will only go as far as you are willing to develop. And so it's kind of the same thing that you're saying. you've got to level yourself up and grow yourself to be that person who can lead that organization at the next level. And that takes time and effort, and you have to make a commitment to go do that work.
The easiest part of growing a business is growing a business. The hardest part of growing a business is growing yourself. Yeah, because if you could, I was chatting with someone yesterday and he was talking about success. I said, but success just means you remember what used to work. It doesn't mean you know what will work in the future. So when you get clear on the fact that, you've got to learn what will work next, then things move well.
And I think more than ever, things are changing so fast that you can't rest on what worked yesterday, because even if it's still working in your business, your competitor is taking the next step. And before you know it, things are going to shift and you may not even see it coming. I've noticed that a lot, that things shift rather quickly these days, and you have to be able to deal with it. And if you can see the shift, or at least be prepared for a shift, then that's okay. So always be scanning the horizon and seeing what's coming next.
Well, yeah, business is very much like, I use the tree as an example. The tree never stops growing. It's always having to grow, because the moment it stops growing, it starts dying. And the same is true for your business. The moment you stop growing, the moment you stop learning, is the moment the business starts dying. So be very clear on the fact that your job as the owner is to keep learning, keep growing, keep building your people, because only with new knowledge and new ideas can new business happen. So we've got to keep it growing, though. And I think that's both the exciting and the challenging part of it.
It is. Sometimes we have too much excitement.
Yeah, look, and in those cases, I don't think you use the word excitement to explain it. I think you use too many challenges, too much, But look, we wouldn't have gone into business if we wanted the easy road, Rocky. We would never have gone into business ourselves if we wanted it to be easy. If we wanted it to be easy, we would stay working for someone else and clock in from 9 to 5, take home our salary and do that. We didn't choose easy when we chose being a business owner. We chose to challenge ourselves. We chose to challenge the people around us. We chose to aim at being the best we can possibly be for all of time. And so, that challenge that we chose to have for ourselves, but it also then challenges you to when to stop. The worst business isn't the business that fails. The worst business is the one that makes just enough money to get by and keeps you trapped for 20 years doing something that destroys your soul. So, sometimes you're better off to kill it. Sometimes you're better off to shut it down. The old theory of, hire slow, fire fast is true for your own business as well. So
I've actually had clients who have thanked me for helping them come to that decision, because they realized, had we not come to that decision 7 years from now, they'd still be having that conversation. And it's basically, it's not that the business was bad. It's just that the business model no longer worked. And so they had to go find a better business model or do a different type of thing. And that is constantly happening too. Is there anything that you wanted to share today but didn't get a chance to?
I'm sure there's a million things we could keep talking about, Rocky. That's why it's good to chat. But look, in today's business marketplace, I just want to remind people, this challenges that we're facing, the uncertainty in the marketplace is the time to make your moves. Uncertainty is not a time to sit back and wait. Uncertainty is not a time to do that. It's a time to make moves. It's a time to expand. It's a time to grow. But learn it, plan it. Don't dive in and just go, oh, well, I'll take it. I see that quote of entrepreneurs are the people who jump off a cliff and build a plane on the way down. What a load of bull. Absolutely wrong. Great entrepreneurs are the people who set a vision. The formula for success is, in my books, very clear. Dream, goal, learn, plan, act. Build your dreams, turn your dreams into goals. Your goals do not mean go to work. Your goals mean start reading, start learning, start listening to podcasts. Once you have your goals, you do the learning, and from the learning, then you do the planning. Until you've done the learning and planning, your goal does not need action. People say, oh, you've got to take action on your goals immediately. Yes, I'll take action on it immediately. I'll go to Amazon and buy 6 bloody books. That's what action you should take on your goals immediately, because let's be real, Rocky. If you set a goal and you know how to do it, it's not really a goal. If you set a goal and you know how to do it, it's a to-do list item. The only time there's a goal and it's a real goal is when it challenges you to learn, challenges you to grow, challenges you to be better. If it challenges you to learn, grow, be better, innovate, disrupt, and do new things, that's a great goal. Otherwise, you're classified in that section called wimpy goals, last year plus 10%. What is that? That's not a goal. That's a to-do list item. Set a real goal. Challenge yourself.
I'm with you on that. And you do have to take action, and you got to get moving towards it. I think a lot of times we wait too long to take the hard decisions. And maybe that's more what it is when you've got the hard decisions, instead of sitting there and watching them, do something about it.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If people would like to learn more about you, Action Coach, how do they find you guys?
Pretty easy. ActionCOACH.com, BradSugars.com. Or if you want the playbook, jump on Instagram, follow me there, and just DM me the word playbook, and the team will get you a great book to get you started and get you moving.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at ProfitComesFirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book in each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.